So Lexus GX460 owners, you guys want to lift your truck. It's finally time, but you guys don't know where to start because you go online and there's just thousands of information all over the place. Well, today we are going to teach you beginners out there step by step on how to do a very basic 2-inch lift in the front, 2-inch lift in the rear, and we are going to do it at a very affordable price. We're going to start by buying 4 springs that will give us the 2-inch lift in the front and the rear. We're going to buy 4 shocks to install with these springs, and we are going to buy the necessary components to fix the suspension geometry that is going to go out of whack right after we lift our trucks. I chose Bilstein 5100s because it was the most affordable shock on the market for lifting your GX460. The main selling point are the perches on the front shock that allows you to lift your vehicle higher than stock spring level. The first perch is whatever your spring height is. I bought front 2-inch lift springs, so if I place these 2-inch lift springs on the first perch, the front of my vehicle will lift 2 inches. This bottom ring right here is already on the first perch. If I install my springs on here, this setup with my 2-inch spring lift and on the first perch will raise my vehicle 2 inches in the front. The second perch will add another 0.85 inches. So add 0.85 inches plus your 2-inch lift springs, you're going to get a total of 2.85 inch lift in the front, and so on and so on. I am not going to go into the third perch or the fourth perch because now you're compromising ride quality by compressing your springs more than they're supposed to. The rear shocks are non-adjustable. You are going to have to lift your rear with the springs that you buy. I bought rear 2-inch lift springs for the rear, so my rear will lift an additional 2 inches. I bought 2-inch lift springs from Old Man Emu, also known as OME. They had really good reviews. They're used worldwide and they were the most affordable. Many GX owners decided to use their stock Lexus springs on a Bilstein 5100 and move the perch to get that lift. But your stock springs were not designed to be riding under that type of compression, which will most likely affect your overall ride quality. If you like shitty, uncomfortable road trips, go for it. Now that we've talked about the main components to lift our truck, let's talk about other necessities, not wants, but necessities to support our lift. When we lift our trucks, our KDSS system now has to compensate for the new height. Remember, Lexus engineers design your KDSS for stock height. So to trick your KDSS system into thinking we are still at stock height, we must fill that gap. We fill that gap with spacers to bring the KDSS system to the level it was intended to work at its best. Next is the rear Trackbar Correction Kit. Also necessary because when you lift the rear of your truck, your track bar will not have the same travel path to keep your axle centered anymore. Your axle will start swaying from side to side if we don't compensate for the missing 2-inch lift gap. That bracket right there moves the track bar to trick the rear suspension into thinking we are still at stock height. Right behind your radiator, there's going to be 2 support beams. One for the passenger, one for the driver. There's going to be 3 bolts that you're going to have to remove on each support beam. It's a 14 millimeter, 14 millimeter, and 14 millimeter. What I like to do, folks, when I remove these bolts, I like to put them back so I don't lose them. This is a good placeholder for me to come back to whenever I need to look for my hardware. Let's move on to the driver's side. Releasing our KDSS valve. Our KDSS valve is right behind this cover here. We're going to have to remove this cover. It takes two 12 millimeters that we're going to have to remove here. Let's go ahead and remove this. I'm going to put my 12 millimeter bolts back in here so I don't lose them. On our KDSS valve, we are going to have to loosen these two bolts right here. We're going to turn them 2.5 turns counterclockwise on each one. Okay, you're going to grab a marker and you're going to mark the head of your bolt right here and mark your starting point. When you're done, it's got this mark right here has to go back to the starting point, okay? So they are 10 millimeters. Let's go ahead and get started. I want to turn this one 2.5 rounds, and this line should be pointing all the way at the top when I'm done. There's one. There's 2.5. Now see how the mark is pointing upward? I want to do the same for this side. There's 1, there's 2, there's half. Leave it right there. Let's go to the next step. We are back at the front of the vehicle. Here is the radiator. On the passenger side, where the sway bar is attached to this bracket, we are going to be removing these two 17 millimeter bolts. The passenger side sway bar bracket and arm where we loosened up is going to have this arm up here, the top portion of our clamp. We're going to have to go up there. There is one 19 millimeter right here that we're going to have to loosen in order for this arm to move back and forth. It makes installing our spacer so much easier. There we go. Now this arm moves. We are going to start with our front passenger side suspension. Let's move closer. At our upper control arm ball joint right here, we're going to have this nut that's going to be held in place securely with this type of special pin. You're going to have to bend it out and bring it out. It's going to look just like this. So the part that you're not going to see is this hook. This hook wraps around this nut, and you're going to have to bring this hook out in order to slide this out of its hole. Okay, now we're going to take a 19 millimeter and break open this nut. What I'm going to do is I'm going to unscrew this maybe halfway to 3/4 way down, not entirely. Keep it right there. I'm going to move up onto the top of the upper control arm, and there is 10 millimeter that's holding this wheel angle sensor wire. We're going to remove this because we want to give this a lot of slack. When we remove all of our suspension components, all of this is going to be dropping down and it's going to be hanging on this wire. We do not want any load on this wire, so we're going to remove this out of the way. Very easy to put back later on. Whenever I remove hardware, I do my best to put the hardware back in its slot right here so we don't lose it. And we also remember what goes where later on, because we might have a bunch of other 10 millimeters that we have to work with, okay? Next, we are going to go to the very bottom of our shock. There's going to be a 19 millimeter nut we are going to have to remove. Comes with a washer. Take it with you. At the top of our shock, we are going to have 14 millimeter nuts. There's 3 of them, 2 that are visible, and there's going to be 1 in the back. For this, we're going to have to use a wrench. I prefer a gear wrench type of wrench. At the bottom of the shock, after you remove the nut, it's good to grab some type of punch to go ahead and knock. Take a hammer and pound on this flat space right here until this ball joint pops out. There you go. Grab yourself a bungee cord, because whenever you release this nut right here, this whole entire thing is going to be dropping. So I like to be ready for that. Let's go ahead and there you go. Make sure let's go ahead and remove this. Now we're going to remove this sway bar bracket right here. In order to loosen up this sway bar, it will give us a lot of room for our lower control arm to expand down. Now we can go ahead and bring our shock out, and we're going to drop it down. It's going to go down into this space right here. While it's going down into that space, you're going to move it from up here. Move the upper control arm out of the way, and the whole thing just comes right out. So the first thing we're going to pay attention to is the orientation of these studs right here in reference to this bottom portion. See, one side is the hole, one side is the solid piece. I'm going to keep the solid piece on a solid plane. This is my solid plane right here, and I'm going to follow it up, and I'm going to notice that it's going to show the 2 studs and one in the back exactly in the middle. So when I put it on my spring compressor, it's going to be in that orientation. Okay, I'm going to start clamping it down before I put on my safety. There, it's in there tight right now. I'm going to go ahead and put on my safety chain right here, just in case this thing decides to pop up on me. Get this in the correct orientation. Start compressing my spring. I try to keep my face away from the top right here. You never know, just in case. See, it's shifting already. Pretty compressed. I'm going to go ahead and release this top nut. I'm going to have to hold this little nipple on the top right here. This is my OEM nut, OEM washer, OEM bushing. This is the top hat. Try to pry this thing off. It's easier just to remove the shock from the bottom. Then your top hat comes right off. Old coils, new coils. Before we even start installing this, we are going to ensure that this ring is on the first perch if you are going to install a 2-inch coil for a 2-inch lift, and that's all you want, okay? We are going to take this out of the Bilstein package, okay? This is the bottom plate. That's where the coil is going to sit. We're going to remove this boot cover, place this over, let it sit down, bring the boot back in. We are also going to use our OEM top hat. We're going to use our OEM bottom bushing and our OEM top bushing. We're going to throw away all the other OEM hardware because we are going to use the Bilstein top washer, which is larger diameter than the bottom washer. The bottom washer goes right underneath here, top washer goes here, and then the nut goes right here, okay? We're going to make sure that the bottom of the coil, where it actually ends, is going to end exactly on this plate where it's supposed to end, okay? There's a notch right here where it changes the angle. It stops right here. So let's go ahead and move this up. Make sure it ends right there. Now I can go ahead and move my shock to the angle that I'm supposed to be in order to put the top hat on. Remember how we're supposed to face the solid part of this bottom piece, and the top piece, we have to show 2 studs right in front of us, evenly centered. This middle stud right here in the back is supposed to be right in the middle between these 2 when we install the rest. I want to put the top washer on here, and it looks like I got a couple of threads I can go ahead and screw on here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go ahead and now tighten this. Make sure it is in the correct orientation. Continue to check. Now all you have to do is just tighten the top nut. Now that I know that it is in the correct orientation, I'm going to go ahead and release the spring compressor. It is fully released. I'm going to go ahead and take off the safety. All right, folks, now we are going to take our shock and coils here, and we're going to install it. The very first thing we're going to have to do is take the bottom part right here, the solid part, face it towards you, and slide it into that hole that we used to remove it in the first place. Next, we're going to move our upper control arm up and out of the way and bring our shocks up to the holes above, those 3 holes. Once you line up the holes and put the studs through the top, you're going to take the nuts, go ahead and screw it in. This is to hold your shock up while you do the rest of the job. Go ahead and just hand tighten all of them down. So you're going to take your bottom one and you're going to shove it in here and line it up with the hole. You're going to bounce on your brake system here until this whole piece comes in. And if it's slightly off at an angle a little bit, which is going to be normal, don't worry about it. Just stick a screwdriver in there and just straighten it up just a little. Get a thicker, there you go. Get a thick screwdriver and straighten it up just a little bit. Help you guys out a little bit there. Okay. Once you straighten it up, you can go ahead and mosey it in there. You can take your screwdriver in here and help it along. There you go. You're going to grab your 19mm bolt here and you're going to go from the rear going forward because you need to put the nut on this side. Makes life easier for you later on. So we're going to use this screwdriver to help us line up the hole. There you go. Go ahead and bounce on your brake system until it comes in. At this point, you can take a punch and just punch it through, or you can just continue to bounce and just slide it in. Now that you see some threads coming out on this side, you can take your washer here, put your nut here, and when you drive this down, it's going to drive the rest of the bolt through. 19 millimeter. I'm just going to run it in. I'm not going to run it in all the way because I'm going to end up torquing it. Grab your torque wrench, set it at 70 foot-pounds, and go ahead and torque. Keep going until you hear the click. That's 70 foot-pounds. Now you can tighten the top. Is 47 foot-pounds, people. Next, we're going to have to bring this ball joint up to this knuckle right here and bring it through. But the thing is, this is spring loaded. It's already pre-loaded, so it's really difficult to bring this down unless you have like a friend that's 400 pounds that's going to help you out bring this down while you bring this up to put in that nut. I don't have that luxury of having a 400-pound friend, nor would I want one. But that's a different story. I'm not going to get into that, guys. So we're going to have to release the upper control arm. Just loosen up this 19 millimeter nut up here. Once we loosen it up, this thing should fall down. Okay, we don't have to remove that whole entire pin up there. Just keep it where it's at. I'm going to remove my splash guards so I have access to that nut right there. I can actually do it with the splash guards on, folks, but this is just better for camera angles also. Just for those of you that are partially blind or legally blind, and if you are, I'm not even sure why you're watching this channel anyways, for people that drive with good eyesight. Anyways, remind me, make a mental note to edit that part out, because I don't want any liberals on my channel to start spewing hate comments. Learn my lesson, good lord. All right, okay, let's move this out of the way. Now we see our 19 millimeter right there. I'm gonna go ahead and loosen that baby up. Remember, counterclockwise, folks. There you go. You see it drop? There you go. Now we are in business. Let's go ahead and take this right here. Put this ball joint in there. Slide it through. Let's put our castle nut on here. And I'm going to remove my bungee cord. The one I bought from Harbor Freight, because that's all I can afford. I'm broke, guys. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Okay, so now that we got that in, we're going to go ahead and tighten this. Tighten this down by hand, guys. Okay, once you got it hand tight, don't go any further. We're going to grab our torque wrench and hit it at 82 foot-pounds. Okay, once we hit at 82 foot-pounds, we are going to see the alignment of the hole. Because it is a castle nut, we're going to have to stick a cotter pin in there, a special cotter pin in there. So if it's off just by a little, go ahead and move it so it aligns with that hole. I already see where the hole's at. I'm going to move it over just a little. Okay. Just a little bit more. Now the hole's lined up. I'm going to grab my special cotter pin right here. And all I'm going to do is take the long part of it. And shove it through the hole. And this hook part of it, I'm going to pull outward so it doesn't get in the way. Pull it outward until I stick the whole entire long part in, and then let go of this hook so it could grab behind. There you go. Now we're going to put our wheel angle sensor cable back with this 10mm bolt. It is going to be 7 inch-pounds, which is barely nothing. Hand tighten, don't overstrip. Right folks, next we are putting back our sway bar bracket right here. We're going to have two 17mm, and we are going to have this bracket right here. This is a special bracket. It's got hooks on the bottom, and it's got this little wedge right here in order for you to use a screwdriver to help you pry for you to align this hole. Take this hook and hook it underneath here, and you're going to put your bottom 17mm bolt, and then on the top you're going to locate that top one. Okay, so here we go. Line up that 17mm hole at the bottom here. Just going to bring it in a little bit. So I'm going to use my screwdriver with this top hole right here, and I'm going to help align it while pushing it in. We're going to hit this at 55 foot-pounds. Good. The next step is you're going to grab your KDSS spacer for the front. The front one is the larger one. There's going to be 3 that comes with your kit. 2 small ones and 1 large. The large one goes to your passenger side. The driver's side doesn't get one, okay? It's going to go between this arm right here and your sway bar bushing down here. You're going to squeeze it in right here, and you're going to grab these 2 bolts, these 2 17mm bolts ready to go. You're going to use your OEM clamp down here, but you're going to use a floor jack to pump this sway bar upwards so it fills up this gap right here. You're going to take your bottom bracket right here. You're going to get rid of these OEM bolts, and you're going to replace them with a KDSS one. Make sure you don't cross thread them. Tighten in by hand first. I'm going to loosen up on the floor jack just so I can have some wiggle room to screw these in to make sure I'm not cross threading them. Go back and forth. I just want to close up the gap here. Okay, closed up the gap. Now we're going to hit these at 30 foot-pounds, which is OEM. Foot-pounds. Okay guys, now that we're done, remember this arm, we had to loosen that 19mm nut up here. Now we're gonna have to retighten it. Okay, I can't give you a really good camera angle up here, but you're gonna have to torque this to 74 foot-pounds. Let's go ahead and do that. There we go, 74 foot-pounds. Okay, now we're gonna have to put our supports back on here. Remember this structure that came out right here? And I kept my hardware on the vehicle so I wouldn't lose it, and good thing I did. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this in here. These are all 14 millimeter. We're going to hit these bolts with 22 foot-pounds. Now we are going to drop our rear KDSS sway bar. There's two clamps right here. Each clamp has two 14 millimeter bolts that we're going to have to remove. There's two. Move that shell right there. And there's four. Sway bar dropped. Rear shocks are fairly easy. You're going to have a 17 millimeter nut on the top, and you're going to have a 17 millimeter bolt on the bottom. Let's go ahead and loosen this bad boy up here. So we found out trying to grip that very top stem and try to loosen this nut was nearly impossible because of this space right here. We decided to go ahead and cut this boot off in order to vice grip that center rod. When we vice grip that center rod, we'd be able to put a 17 millimeter on here and turn it. So he's putting a vice grip on the center piston right there in order to hold the center rod. Keep it from spinning when we try to take the nut off. This is Junior, my friend, came over here to help me out. He brought his 2027 Lexus GX460 over here. Let's go check it out, guys. What the fuck? It's a Toyota. Oh man, I'm gonna have to choose brand new friends. Who the fuck buys a Toyota? Good news, the nut is spinning. By vice gripping the center rod, we were able to spin the nut off without the center stem spinning along with it. Taking out the bottom nut, 17 millimeter. There you go. Awesome. There's the rear shock. Now we're going to bounce this out. So here's the old shock and the new shock. I'm going to start assembling by transferring certain hardware over. I'm going to remove the old nut here. This is the old top and this is the bottom. I'm going to reuse the bottom. I'm going to put this into the vehicle, and then I'm going to use the Bilstein bushing for the top, Bilstein washer for the top, and the Bilstein nut for the top to go on top. We're going to grab our new coils. We're going to take this rubber cone from the old springs and put it over here. hang on. All right, go for it. There you go. Okay, let go.
Turn it.
Turn it.
Sit.
Where's it sitting?
Sit off.
Okay.
There you go. Right there.
Okay, all right, let go. Okay, there you go, perfect. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put my floor jack and pump it up in order for my shocks. In order for this bottom portion to meet its pin, okay? At the same time, I'm putting this through the vehicle. When you guys have the bottom and the top already in, you're gonna want to grab your rubber mallet and start pounding this in until the shock is flush with the rest of the vehicle right here. We're gonna go ahead and put our hardware back in here. Go ahead and hand tighten. From here, we are going to pump our floor jack higher to expose more threads up here. Makes our job a lot easier when we have to tie in our nut up here. Next, we're going to put our Bilstein nut on here. Start screwing down. So I got it hand tight. Now I'm going to go ahead and torque it at 34 foot-pounds under pressure, meaning the floor jack, while being pushed up, is holding a pressure and load onto the shock in order for me to do my torque. 34 foot-pounds, we're using a crow's foot. Now you're going to take a 17 millimeter and hit this at 72 foot-pounds at the bottom of the shock. We're going to take a 19 millimeter and remove this bolt right here for our rear track bar. Done. I'm gonna get a bungee cord and move this out of the way. You're gonna take this correction kit bracket and you're going to be placing it inside here, but it's going to be a tight fit, so we're going to have to bend this out a little bit. Got myself a nice little pipe wrench right here. Help me bend out this bracket. Okay, now let's see if it fits. And it fits. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to take this bracket. There's a long end and a short end. I'm going to take the long end and stick it in first towards the front of the vehicle. Make sure the nut is facing upward. There you go. And when you bring it in, take your finger and try to center it, because you're going to put in another bolt down here blindly when another plate goes over here. Now we're going to take our main plate. We got these two holes towards the rear of the vehicle, this hole right here towards the passenger, and this long ass plate down here is going to be on the bottom where that blind hole is underneath here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start taking these short bolts right here, screwing it in just to hold our plate in here. Don't tighten all the way. We want some type of slack. Now we're going to look for this hole underneath here. You're going to have to stick your head underneath here and guide yourself and look for that hole. Use your finger to move that plate and go ahead and start threading it in. Perfect. Perfect. There you go. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Now you're going to take your OEM bolt that you took out, you're going to screw it in at the bottom hole all the way through until you reach the OEM nut on the other side. Perfect. Now that I got the bracket installed, I'm going to go ahead and release my bungee. I'm going to bring my pan handle down here, line up the holes. I'm going to use the longest bolt that came with our Dr. KDSS correction kit. I'm going to slide it right in here, through the hole to the other side. And on the other side, you place your nut. And there you go. You're going to hit this at 120 foot-pounds using a 18 millimeter. You're going to hit this 18 millimeter right here at 120 foot-pounds. We're going to hit this at 96 foot-pounds and hit this one at 96 foot-pounds. $18 millimeter, also 96 foot-pounds. I already drove this in. Let's not forget about zip tying our ABS line here. KDS system in the rear, but we're going to be adding spacers, so we're going to take our driver side rear, we're going to bring it up, we're going to bring back the clamp underneath here, we're going to take our Dr. KDSS, we're going to take our bolts here and screw it in by hand because we don't want to cross thread anything. Make sure everything goes in nicely. Now we're going to go to the passenger side. We're going to have to do the exact same thing, but we're going to have to use our floor jack to help us bring this up here. We're going to fit our spacer on here. There you go. And while we fit our spacer on there, we're going to continue jacking to bring it up. Okay. Now we're going to put our clamp on here. Make sure you screw everything in by hand. I'm going to go back and forth both sides. You want to stop when you close the gap, okay? Don't go any further. perfect. Now one of our final steps is to close up the KDSS valve. Go ahead and grab your 10 millimeter and go back 2.5. There's half. There's 1. And there is 2. Perfect. There's half. There's 1. There's 2. Perfect. Now we're going to put our shield back on. The shield is going to slide in between this fork and your KDS valve. You got a couple of 12 millimeters. You're going to want to hit this at 21 foot-pounds. Now that you guys finished dropping your vehicle onto the floor, we are going to go ahead and do the final step of tightening up our upper control arm bolt and putting back this dust cover here. We're going to hit this at 85 foot-pounds. I'm using a 2-inch extension and a crow's foot. I'm also using the handle of my floor jack to get better leverage. There you go. Now we can put our splash guards back on. Okay guys, that's a wrap. We just did a 2-inch lift on our Lexus GX460. I hope you guys liked it. If this is the first time you guys watched this video, this is actually the 3rd time. I had to re-release it a couple of times because the very first time I found out that I was infringing on some copyright laws and had no clue Michael Jackson was a subscriber. So YouTube contacted me and said, hey, you gotta take that music down at the beginning. And so that's why the second and the third video release, the beginning is different. I also rewatched the video and realized that at the end of the video, I just rambled on and on and on, and I just wanted to shorten that part up a little bit. Nobody wants to hear another person ramble, not even me. Sorry about that, guys. And I also added some updates to the video, and I thought that I left it out, and I had no idea it was so important. I left it out. I redid it, and this is the video. This is the final video. If you're watching this, this is the final video. Okay, so I'm going to answer some questions that I know will show up, so hopefully you watch all the way till the end, and you won't have to ask, or hundreds of you won't have to ask. So what about wheel alignment? Yeah, absolutely. I didn't show you guys that part, obviously, because that's just something that was super obvious. After you're done with your lift, go to your frame and alignment shop and have it realigned. And it's super important. They actually told me, what the hell did I do? Because my alignment, my front alignment was just way out of whack. Good thing I did the alignment. So the second one was upper control arm. You notice I didn't include the upper control arm in there. Folks, I wanted to do a basic 2-inch lift, which didn't include a whole bunch of other stuff that that people normally do when they do a lift, such as, for an example, such as the sway bar and links reposition bracket. I didn't include that. There's going to be a lot of other things that are going to be included in a lift. I'm not going to overwhelm you guys and do a 2-hour video when I could just do a basic lift, okay? The only reason why I added the KDSS spacer and the Trackbar correction, because I had to do it in sequence. I'm not going to make you guys do a 2-inch lift and then have to go back and disassemble stuff just to add more stuff. So it was just easier to add those 2 safety items in there so you guys could do it in sequence and call it a day when you put your wheels and tires back on. It's just simpler that way. Okay, the upper control arm, I will eventually do it. I'm not doing it right now, only because it's a 2-inch lift and I'm only gonna be driving on asphalt for now. I'm not gonna go off the beaten path and go crazy on the weekends with my suspension. Okay, so the upper control arms can wait, and the reason why I'm waiting is because it is a very high-priced item, very expensive, and I felt like something like that wasn't really necessary right away because it's only a 2-inch lift. But I will eventually get there, okay guys? Next question, do my wheels rub? No, they do not rub. So I had my son go in the car, turn left and right. I also had him watch my wheels whenever I went up my driveway, and when I went reverse back down my driveway, I went up a curb. I did a whole bunch of other stuff, and no, it did not rub at all. I am sporting some 265/70/17 needle grapplers, if you guys wanted to know, and they do not rub. Is the truck leveled? So here's the thing, I keep saying 2-inch lift, but technically my 885 front springs are 2.5 inch, and the 895 rears are 2-inch. Okay, so the front 2.5, I keep saying 2 inches because I figured the weight of the engine, and once you drive it around and it settles, it's going to come down to 2 inches. But surprisingly, I've been driving around for a few days already, and the vehicle looks super leveled. I really like the way it looks. It does not droop in the front. It is very level, as you can see in the video. How is the ride quality? You guys, it's different from OEM, and I'm gonna say that I feel like it's softer. Right now, my drive is just really nice. It's like driving a Cadillac or something. It's not stiff. You know, when you drive in a Corvette or a sports car, you can feel the stiffness. When I drove in my GX with the lift and with the new springs, it's a really nice, comfortable ride, and I truly enjoyed it a lot. It's really nice. So another question is, if you guys noticed, why did I mix my used hardware with my new hardware when I was assembling the shocks? So, you guys, I am a firm believer in always using OEM components. If the OEM components look like they're going to last for a long time, I'm going to stick with OEM even though I receive brand new Bilstein hardware. But if I have OEM components that looks like it's iffy and it's cracking or stressing or whatever, I'm going to replace them with the brand new aftermarket. So that's why you saw me mix and match. I took the best of everything when I assembled something together. Obviously, you saw me take the Bilstein nut instead of the OEM nut. OEM nut has a different torque spec, and the Bilstein nut has a different torque spec. I used the Bilstein torque spec because I used a Bilstein nut, if that makes sense, okay? Can I do a lift without the KDSS spacer and the correction kit? Yes, you guys can. It's really up to you guys. I felt like it was a safety issue, okay? Don't be that guy that's going to create an accident because you didn't want to spend the extra money to buy the bracket that corrects your swaying for your truck. Don't be that guy that's going to kill that family of 4 Pakistanis and 2004 Toyota Sienna and back of you on their way to Disneyland. Guys, don't be that guy. I only showed you the KDS spacers and the Trackbar correction only because it was a very important safety item to include in your lift. You don't want the reaction of your suspension to be unpredictable, and that was my goal. Final question. Well, it's not really a question, it's more of a comment. And I get this a lot on many of my videos, okay? And I don't know if you guys are joking or not. You guys, you men out there keep saying, I want to buy stuff. I want to do the stuff that you're doing, Bob, but my wife won't let me, or my wife says no. You guys, your GX460 or 470 is going to last longer than your marriage. It's going to be cheaper to maintain your GX. Your GX will not talk back to you. And your GX does not require Valentine gifts. If you want advice from a semi-smart guy, get rid of the wife, keep the GX.